I've realized is that when you say the word pleasure, everybody instantly thinks sexual pleasure. And although I realize like pleasure is important, I also feel that just general pleasure is really important as well. And I was just wondering, when you speak about pleasure, what do you mean by that, and why do you think it's so important?
Mm, beautiful question. So pleasure. Let's talk biology first, and then I'll go into my definition.
Okay.
So in biology, all living beings on this planet have a makeup that either moves them away from or contracts them against pain. And you can see that all the way down to like little cells. Like there's a movement away from pain, and there's a movement towards or an expansion towards pleasure. So our biological system is hardwired in this simple like on-off switch, right?
Mm.
Every creature has this, every creature. So pleasure in that level is an indication of surviving and thriving. Make
Yes,
sense?
yes.
So the system, our biology is designed to thrive in an environment of pleasure where we are feeling good, where the body is healthy, where the mind is healthy, where the emotional body is healthy. We're feeling delighted and relaxed and joyous and creative. These are the birthrights of being a human being, and also for all other beings as well. No one should really be, in a constant state of suffering.
Mm.
So that's like a fundamental definition that exists on pleasure. So when I refer to pleasure, it has to do with a concept that I came up with years ago called omni-orgasmic state. And I believe that we are all, as human beings, born into this omni-orgasmic state. An omni-orgasmic state means all orgasmic. What does that mean? So I'm not talking just sex here. So we'll clarify that in a moment. Imagine that every cell in your body, every fiber of your body has the capacity to have receptor sites on ow and yum,
Yeah.
right? Every little fiber is set up that way. Your nerve fibers everywhere. It's like either ow or yum,
Mm.
right? So the omni-orgasmic aspect is the yum aspect. It's that every cell, every fiber can actually experience delight and pleasure. Let's take that a step further and take it out of the sexual realm, although that's inclusive of the sexual realm. And imagine that our senses, that which is the bridge to reality, our senses make sense of reality. So our sensuality is bridging whatever's out there, it's bringing it in and giving us a visceral experience of it. That's how we make sense of reality, through the sensuality. So you imagine that through the senses, a certain smell is so good that it elicits delight and pleasure that streams through your body, and you're like, whoa, I love that smell. Or you see a sunset so beautiful, it cracks you wide open, and the pleasure level could be so profound that it actually feels like an orgasm, but it's happening everywhere in the body.
Mm.
These are possibilities for everyone. They're not some weird freak of nature thing. Um, it's a person who either has never been numbed or socially conditioned out of noticing their own arousal cues and what's going on somatically in their body, or it's a person who's had those experiences but has come back to make the choice of having a deep somatic relationship with their body where they're actually attuned to the signals like, wow, that feels good, yum. And this is literally an internal compass that we have hardwired in our body
Mm.
because, as I said earlier, biologically, we are being pulled towards pleasure. So if you have that compass, imagine you really use it authentically, like an instinctual being. You see like animals and babies. A person will walk in the room and the baby's been nice to everybody, but this one person comes in and they're like, rah, and they start screaming, and no one can figure out why. It's instinctual, but there's something that the baby's picking up about this supposedly nice person.
Mm.
if we were authentic to those impulses, we would probably navigate our lives towards people who would make us, we just experience delight and relaxation and safety with those people. We would move towards creativity that would inspire us. So we'd actually, through following our instinctual nature or the basic pleasure impulse in our body, we would navigate through life in a healthy way. We would actually move towards the things that would feel good. Now, I know that goes against a lot of how we think of things in society. We just got to, bear and grin it and do and work hard and all these things, these ethics, but it's resulting in a very sick culture, physically and mentally very, very sick culture. And there's a reason for that. Lack of pleasure, as I said before, pain causes contraction, it causes illness. So we don't function at our maximum capacity. And so if day in and day out we're relating with people we can't stand, and we're living in a place that's just awful to our senses, and we have a job that we hate, what do you think is going to happen to the being? So understanding pleasure in that kind of simple way, where it's like a guideline, a compass, and it takes it out of just sexuality, we start to have more of a reverence for it. And what's cool, Jackie, is I actually got to speak with someone in the UN. I had a meeting a while ago, and I propositioned the UN. I said, we need to make pleasure a human birthright, and this is why. It is not frivolous. When we have pleasure in our lives to this degree, we actually access more creativity, more self-esteem, more genius, more solutions to what are needed to make this planet a livable place.
Yeah.
But if everyone's shut down and just trying to, barely survive, we can't think beyond our noses, and all these things start to happen and occur beyond our creativity because we just don't have the bandwidth. It's not really a great place. So I believe it's actually a human birthright. And when it's re-established that way as truth, we will treat it in a very different way versus it being a commodity, something that is outside of us that we need to purchase or get from someone. And we go, no, I have this in me now. I'm just not living in a way where I can really feel it.
I listened to a webinar with you, and you mentioned in it about that we orgasm in the womb, and this literally shifted something massive within me, because I was just like, we are born this way, and it just made so much sense. And I suddenly had all these realizations, and I have to be honest, I still have some issues around expressing myself in this way. And even when I'm alone, and it's just like guilt and shame and this feeling of it's wrong and dirty, and it's so deeply ingrained. And I'm wondering if you've got any views on this or any advice.
Yes. So what you're referring to was a study that was done on fetal development, and they were doing ultrasounds. And what they noticed both with boy babies and female babies is that there was this stimulation of the genital area, and then these pulsings that would happen in the baby's body, and this would happen over and over again. And they started to recognize that was orgasm. Fundamentally, like really ancient traditions view that kind of behavior, because sexuality was revered and it was understood as the primal life force, that which creates life. So to feel that the body, the being, the little baby would know that to induce that kind of pleasure actually helps the cells to grow in a healthy way, like that kind of like unconscious but instinctual wisdom that's already innately in the body, blew my mind. It was like, fantastic. Yeah. We know this already. We don't even need to learn this. There's this thing that we know that if we feel really good, everything blossoms. And that's from like before birth. So how beautiful is that? And your question, what it's addressing and looking at is a learned behavior. The learned behavior is shame, because we're born shameless. We don't even know what shame is. We're born so naturally at home in our own bodies, so naturally connected with feelings of delight. And if you look at a young baby, there's only a few options. They're either screeching because something doesn't feel good, or they're gurgling and giggling because it feels good. And that's really what's available to the baby. And that's fundamentally, it remains true as an adult, we just get more complex. And then we're socialized in very specific ways. And there are very few modern cultures that do not elicit shame, because shame is a great way to control people. It's a great way to dim people's genius. It's a great way to keep people from really feeling their sovereignty and their power and expression in the world, is to elicit shame. And the fastest way to do that is through the most primal and instinctual piece, which is our sexuality. Why? Well, I don't know if you noticed, Jackie, but when you leave your house and you go to the bank, or you go to a meeting, or you go to church, or wherever you're going, your genitals actually come with you. You can't leave them at home on the bedside table saying, you stay there. You can't be involved with what I'm about to do. They travel with us. And here's the key thing. Modern society believes that sexuality is a commodity. It believes that it's something that we do. It does not understand that it's something that we are innately sexual beings. And because we believe it's something that we do, then every time we feel a physical sensation of turn on, we believe that we need to do something about that. Or if someone near us is experiencing turn on, somehow we're responsible for it, or we should do something about their turn on. Or not, but most of the time we feel sort of this guilt, like, oh God, they really want that, so maybe I should do something. And that's a fundamental lie. It's a fundamental kind of a skewing of what's true. We are sexual beings, and there's nothing we have to do about our turn on unless we choose to. And one of the things that I teach people is, can you allow yourself to feel the sensation of aliveness, of turn on in your body, and just feel it and do nothing about it? I know it can be hard. I know it can feel like so overwhelming that you need to move or get rid of it, like a bad itch or something. But fundamentally, at some point, you become so attuned and relaxed with this particular sensation that you stop also relating it permanently to sexuality. And so here's an example. When I talk to people who are in their genius, say about business, let's take it totally out of the realm of sexuality, move it to business for a second, which is an interesting place to talk about this. And they've got a gift, and their gift is going to be useful to me. It's going to somehow make my business even more amazing. And they're sharing that gift with me. I can tell you, Jackie, I get turned on. It's like a different kind of G-spot. And I'm like, oh my God, I am so turned on. You are amazing. I had no idea that we could do this and we'd have this experience. Beautiful. That sensation of turn on is the mechanism in my being saying, yes, move towards that.